Hello, everyone, and welcome to Genealogy Basics at Home. My name is Sarah McKinley, and I'm the Local History and Genealogy Supervisor of Muncie Public Library and manager of the Carnegie Library in downtown Muncie, Indiana. I also serve on the Board of Directors of the Delaware County Historical Society. It's currently June 2020, and the world is experiencing the COVID-19 pandemic. So many of us are either isolating at home or unable to visit our favorite genealogy libraries as we try to socially distance ourselves. So what better time to brush up on some genealogy basics and find out what resources are available to you from home? I would also like to preface this presentation by saying that it should be useful to you no matter where you may be watching from. However, I do at times focus in on resources available here in Delaware County, Indiana. With that said, today we'll be covering the following genealogy basics. At the end of this presentation, my goal is for you to be familiar with basic genealogical terms and for you to have the tools to help you get started. We will define genealogy and the reasons people research their genealogy. We'll look at some tips for good research habits you should develop in order to be successful. I'll give you some direction for how to begin your research and provide an overview of the types of documents and sources of information that you will want to look for. I'll recommend places that may be able to help you with your research, and we'll also look at some of the best free online resources, as well as take a brief look at DNA testing for genealogy, if that's something that may interest you. If you're wondering where the term genealogy comes from, it's the combination of the Greek words genia, meaning generation, and logos, meaning knowledge. Genealogy is the study of families and tracing their history through historical records, interviews, DNA analysis, and other methods to gather information about family and show kinship and pedigrees of its members with charts and written narratives. The image on this slide is an example of a generational or pedigree chart. A pedigree chart is used to illustrate the generations of family, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on. Notice that if you turn a pedigree chart to a vertical orientation, each generation looks like the branches of a tree, hence the term family tree. We build a family tree with names, dates, and locations of key life events such as births, marriages, and deaths. We first start with what we know. We talk to people who might know more, such as relatives and friends. Then we try to prove that information and take it further by finding supporting documents and records. Here is a list of the typical types of documents that we look for. Everything from birth records to cemetery records and census records. Each of these records will provide unique bits of information that help us fill in the details of our family tree. A marriage application, for example, will give us the names of spouses, parents, occupations, birth dates, birthplaces, marriage dates, addresses, and so on. These are all clues that help us locate and identify more relatives and more documents. We're building that puzzle, one clue, one document, or one piece of information at a time. So why are people interested in conducting genealogy research in the first place? Well, there are many reasons, and it's not always the same from person to person. You might conduct genealogy research to honor your ancestors, to find out and document their history as a way of feeling connected to your family and celebrating where your family came from. You might use genealogy to find out more about your health history, whether through submitting a DNA sample and looking at your genetic ancestry, or through researching historic records to discover common hereditary traits in your family. Finding out your family's health history may be important to your current or future health. Genealogy is also a fantastic way to exercise your mind. Just like doing crossword puzzles, genealogy research is another fun way to keep your mind active. You're solving a giant puzzle by seeking out clues and pieces of information, figuring out how they all connect and lead to the next person in your family tree. You may also look to genealogy to find out more about yourself. Knowing more about those who went before us can help give us a renewed sense of identity. Genealogy is also a legacy to those who come after you, whether it's your actual direct descendants or simply generations of distant relations to come after you. You can pass on your research and family history to others. Some people conduct genealogy research for religious reasons. Mormons, for example, trace their family trees because they believe that families can be eternally joined through sacred ceremonies, including those who have already died. So they use genealogy as a way to find ancestors and strengthen their family bonds. And for many of us, genealogy is done for the fun and adventure. Genealogy is one of the most popular hobbies around today. Whether you enjoy taking genealogy road trips to the old family homestead, or a family cemetery, or even taking genealogy cruises, yes, they actually do exist, or prefer doing genealogy research from the comfort of your own home, it's exciting to discover new pieces of your family history and learn new stories. What does it mean to be a genealogist, then? The terms in this list all apply to you as a genealogy researcher. You're a detective, hunting down leads and clues. You're a historian, recording your family's story. To find out information from the living, you sometimes have to be a snoop, or be diplomatic, or simply a keen observer. When looking at information, you often need to be a skeptic. Not everything you find may be accurate. You're a biographer. You need to be a bit of a linguist. Sometimes you may need to determine old American handwriting, or find ways to translate documents. And you need to know how to report your findings. Let's take a look at some habits we should develop to be the most successful in documenting our research. One of the first basic research habits I can recommend you develop before you get started is how to document dates. In this first example, 10/5/22. What date is that? Is that October 5th or May 10th? Is that 1922 or 1822? For this reason, genealogists do not recommend writing dates this way and have adopted a standard format, which is a number for the day, spelling out or abbreviating the month, and a full-digit number for the year. It is okay to have a 5 or a 05 for the day, and it is okay to abbreviate the month, so long as it is a number for the day, a word for the month, and a full-digit year in that order. This will help you avoid confusion with dates. Genealogists also recommend you adopt the standard format for places. Typically, this is city, township, county, state, and then country. Sometimes not all of this information is applicable, or sometimes a township may be called something else, such as a borough or a parish. But the important thing is to remember smallest to largest. In my first example for Muncie, Muncie is the city contained within Center Township in Delaware County in the state of Indiana in the United States of America. If you don't know all of that information for certain, or you don't have room for all of it in your documentation, you could document it as Muncie, Delaware, Indiana, or Delaware County, Indiana, just so long as you follow that form in that order and that it is easy to determine when it is a city or a county. This becomes important when you are trying to tell the difference between different places with the same names. For example, many people here in Muncie, Indiana probably assume we are the only city named Muncie. And it's likely the most well-known city named Muncie since we've been referenced many times in sociological studies and in pop culture. However, there is also a Muncie, Kansas and a Muncie, Illinois. There are also townships named Delaware in other counties or Delaware counties in other states. So it's important to follow that standard format and put the most complete information that you can find. It may be helpful to keep a research log of the records you search in for your ancestors. This way you don't waste time looking for records you have already found and can focus your efforts on what you still need. You can easily find templates for research logs online. I can't stress enough the importance of writing down notes and citations as soon as possible. The biggest lie you can tell yourself is that you don't need to write it down. You'll remember it. As soon as you copy a document, cite your source. Or if you save a digital file, be sure to give it a file name that tells you that source information as soon as you save it. Another tip when doing your research is to take everything with a grain of salt. People don't always tell the truth, and so you may find records with contradicting information. Whether intentional or not, people may provide or record inaccurate information, and you may have to find multiple sources to determine the truth. Similarly, you want to be careful when looking at the genealogy research that other people have already conducted or published online. You may certainly use their research as a clue by looking at their sources, but it is never wise to copy the work of another researcher without verified sources, as you never know if they've used good research methods themselves. As you start looking for records, you may need to get creative with spelling. Don't place too much significance on the spelling of a name. In this example, the name Kogel may be spelled with a C-O-U, C-O-W, or C-O-L. Differences in spelling can occur for a variety of reasons. Immigration or migration patterns over time in which families moved to countries or different areas may have altered the spelling of their name. Illiteracy may have caused the name to be recorded phonetically, or names may be misread and indexed incorrectly. In this example, we see a name recorded on a census record. We can pretty clearly determine that the head of the household's first name is William, but in red, I've outlined his last name, which some people have difficulty interpreting. The correct name is Engel, E-N-G-E-L, but some people have read the N as a U and indexed it as Ugel. Records like this one have been digitized and are available on many online databases. However, since the records are handwritten, it takes a human to interpret the handwriting and make a determination to index it. Ancestry.com's indexer interpreted the last name as Ugel, while another indexer on FamilySearch.org interpreted it correctly as Engel. Now, that doesn't mean that Ancestry is better or more accurate than FamilySearch. This is just one example. This is to show you, 1, why it is important to be creative in how you search for a name and to try multiple possible spellings if you can't find a document, and 2, to look at multiple websites or books which may have interpreted and indexed the information differently. Something else to be aware of that may be helpful is knowing the difference between primary information and secondary information contained on the documents that you find. In simple terms, primary information will be found on documents and records that were created at or around the time of an event. For example, a marriage date on a marriage certificate is considered primary information because the date was recorded close to the time that the actual event occurred. Secondary information is everything else contained on that document and should generally be used as clues to finding a primary source of information. Using the same example of a marriage document, the birth date and birth location of the bride and groom on a marriage application is secondary information because their births occurred many years prior to the marriage document, which leaves some chance for error. However, this information can help you pinpoint the date and location that you need to focus on to locate a primary source. Does that mean that the information is wrong? No, it just means that there is a chance for error, and it's best to try to find more documents to back up that information. With all of that in mind, there are a few things to do before you begin your research. Number 1, get organized. Determine your goals and gather the tools and forms you may need to help you organize your research. Number 2, begin with documenting yourself and what you already know about your parents and grandparents. Don't worry if you don't have exact dates yet. Just write down what you can. You can find free blank pedigree charts on Ancestry.com or by doing a search online. Number 3, talk to family members and friends. Prepare a list of questions and share them in advance. Number 4, when interviewing someone about your family, show interest, be a good listener, and take good notes. There are many tips and sample questions for genealogy interviews that can be found online. Whether you are using paper forms or a website to organize your genealogical information, you will be creating an ancestral pedigree chart such as this. You will begin with yourself and then branch out to your parents. Your father will be on the top line and your mother will be on the bottom line. The next branch will be your grandparents. Again, following this pattern with the male ancestor on top and the female ancestor on the bottom. If your chart is vertical, males will be on the left and females on the right. If using a paper form, you will eventually run out of space, so you would simply continue onto a new chart and label your charts to indicate which charts they continue on. This is not an issue when using a website or software, but paper is always a good thing to have as a backup. Another form you may find useful is a family group sheet. This sheet is used for one household or family and allows you to add more than just parents. You can also add all of the children along with their spouses. Genealogy websites and software will also allow you to add this information. Now that we have covered good research habits and how to document our information, we'll look at the types of records that you may find useful. If you are lucky enough, your family may have saved diaries or a family Bible. Family Bibles often contain lists of births, marriages, and deaths in the front of them. Would this be considered primary or secondary information? Well, it could be either or both. In the front of a Bible, if the handwriting for this information looks different in each entry, it may be primary information that was recorded soon after the events occurred. If the entries all look like they were recorded by the same hand on the same day, it's likely secondary information that was filled out at a later time. In a diary, it depends on if the person is recording events that occurred recently or if they are reflecting back on events that occurred many years ago. In addition to giving us names and dates, diaries are unique as they contain individual first-hand accounts of your family's story. You can learn about personal experiences and emotions. At our library, we have a collection of diaries that belonged to a local newspaper columnist named Dick Green. The diaries span from 1928 to 1983, and he wrote in them almost daily all of those years. His diaries tell us about his family, his friends and work colleagues, his experiences, his thoughts on the news of the day or the price of coffee, milestone events, and other characters in our city's history. We've recently taken on the enormous task of indexing these diaries before we digitize them, but we do so because they are so invaluable. Again, if you're lucky, your family will have also saved photographs or scrapbooks, and if you're even luckier, they will have documented names and dates with them. If you don't have access to family photos or scrapbooks, you may find photos in other sources publicly available, such as school yearbooks. Many of these can be found online or in public libraries like ours. There are other websites out there, such as Ancestry.com, that may also contain family photos that people have digitized and uploaded. Next, we have birth, marriage, and death records. These are the most vital records that you will be looking for, as they contain the primary information on the 3 major life events that are documented on family trees. They will often contain clues and other details such as occupations, residences, names of parents, spouses, or children, and other genealogical information. A death record, for example, shown here, tells me this person's date of death, his birth date, where he lived, that he was a salesman when he died, that he died of a heart attack. It also gives me his parents' names, his wife's name, his funeral location, and his date and place of burial. This is a great deal of information in one record, and it gives me some clues for other records that I may search for. Normally, birth and death records may be found at a county health department, and marriage records with a county clerk, but I'll be showing some places to look online as well. The U.S. Federal Census, which is taken every 10 years, is another very popular resource of genealogical information, as it will include who lived in each household and their relationships to each other, their marital status, age, and place of origin. You can also find out their occupation and level of education. As you may know, 2020 is a census year, so not only is it vitally important to take the census in order to make sure your community has the funding it needs for public services, but it's also very helpful for genealogists in the future. The U.S. Census becomes public record after it's 72 years old, so the last census that was released was the 1940 census, and we'll see the 1950 census released to the public in the year 2022. These are released online, so I'll show you some of these sites where you can find them. A couple of things to note: if you have not researched census records before, the older the census year, the less information was recorded. As you go further back, you may only see the name of the head of the household, usually a male, but no names for the rest of the household. So it does get trickier the further back you go, but more recent census records provide a great deal of information. Also, there is limited information available for the 1819 and 1890 censuses due to a fire that occurred in which many records were lost. I know this will be hard to see on smaller screens, but just to show an example, this 1920 census record shows my great-great-grandparents, Marshall and Nancy Cobb, and tells me who their 7 children were that year, including my great-grandmother Mary, that they were born in Kentucky but lived in Sullivan County, Indiana. It tells me their ages and says that my great-great-grandfather Marshall worked in the coal mines as a fireman, which after some further research I found out was not to be confused with a firefighter. A fireman was someone who looked out for something in mines called fire damp, which was an explosive gas found in coal mines. So, see, you can learn all sorts of new things with genealogy. Some records that are often overlooked in genealogy include land records, such as deeds. They may not give you much vital information, but they may give you geographical information, as well as a clue as to when your ancestor arrived or left a geographical area. You may also find out where the family homestead was located. Our library has been digitizing these records for Delaware County, but normally you will want to check with the county courthouse. Wills and probate records are also often overlooked, but they can be gold mines of information. They both provide death dates as well as names of spouses and children or other relatives, but they may also provide information about how your ancestor lived, things that they owned, goods and services that they used, occupations that they held, and so on. Did they own a horse or a car? Did they have a gas stove or an electric toaster? An ice box or a refrigerator? Did they owe money for lumber that they ordered to build a barn, or shoes that they ordered to stock their shoe store? You may also find out details about an ancestor's personality. Were they a giving and charitable person? Did they hold a grudge against someone? Wills and probates also contain guardianship information if you are looking for children who may have been placed in someone else's care when their parents died. If you're looking here in Delaware County, we have an index to our county's probate records on our websites, and we've digitized the wills in our databases that I'll show you soon. Normally, these would also be found at a county clerk's office. City directories are similar to phone books, but provide additional information such as spouse names and occupations. They are also cross-referenced by address, meaning that in one half of the book you can search by name, and in the other half you can search by address. Newspapers are great sources of information for death announcements and obituaries, which are basically short biographies that will usually provide clues about birth and death dates, spouses, children, parents, and final resting place. Newspapers are also helpful for tracking down marriages, births, and other milestones in your ancestor's life. Court records are very useful for tracking down information on divorces, guardianship, and sometimes even finding those skeletons in the closet and solving family mysteries or rumors. Again, we've been digitizing these for Delaware County, but normally these will be found with the county clerk. County histories are great for finding those elusive pioneer ancestors who didn't leave vital records behind. They may provide biographical information or a list of membership to clubs, military rosters, landowners, and more. Maps, such as plat maps, which show landowners, may also be useful in tracking down ancestors. Early plat maps may be especially helpful, as often your ancestors married their neighbors when modern transportation was not yet available. You may find additional ancestors in close proximity. Military records, such as draft cards, may include parents or spouses and birth dates. Immigration and naturalization records may also prove helpful, especially when trying to trace an ancestor's place of origin. All right, so now that you know the types of records to look for, where do you find them? Well, here in Muncie, we have at least 2 places that I recommend contacting for help if you are looking for Delaware County records or if you live in Delaware County and need some direction finding records online. Carnegie Library is Muncie Public Library's local history and genealogy location. Our physical collections focus primarily on Delaware County, Indiana, and surrounding counties. Our collection includes millions of original Delaware County courthouse records dating back to 1827, as well as local city directories, school yearbooks, cemetery indexes, family histories, photographs, county histories, newspapers, and more. We also provide free online access to worldwide genealogy databases such as Ancestry and MyHeritage, and our staff are trained to assist you with your research, educate you on how to use the various resources, and point you in the right direction. As I said in my introduction, since we are experiencing a public health crisis at this time, our building is currently closed to the public, but our staff are able to assist you virtually. Our hours and services are changing, so the best way to find out our current hours and services available is to call, email, visit our website, or follow us on social media. If you are watching this from outside our county, your local library may also be able to assist you. Historical societies can also help you. The Delaware County Historical Society's physical collection is much smaller and focused locally, but they do have online access to genealogy databases and volunteers who can help you when they reopen. The best way to contact them currently is online by email or on social media. Once you've exhausted local and online resources, which we'll talk about next, you may also need to visit or contact other county offices or libraries to track down records. Often they can be contacted by email or by phone, and they may charge for research services. I recommend county clerks, health departments, libraries, and historical societies. You can also usually find their contact information online, but our library staff can help you with that. Again, the staffing, hours, and services of these offices are likely affected by the health crisis currently, so please be patient with them and expect longer response times. As you know, we live in a digital age, which has opened genealogy research wide open for many of us who can't afford to be world travelers or are stuck at home during a pandemic. We can begin much of our genealogy research online, either from the comfort of our own home computer or on our mobile devices. If you have Delaware County ancestors, I recommend checking out the Muncie and Delaware County Digital Resource Library, which is a free set of databases created by Muncie Public Library. It contains local court records, deeds, wills, funeral and cemetery records, and an obituary index. All can be accessed with no library card or login required. You can save, print, or email the records we've digitized, and we digitize new records almost daily. Muncie Public Library has also digitized our city and county school yearbooks. Again, these are available for free on our website, no library card or login required. You'll find the link on our local history and genealogy page at munciepubliclibrary.org. The largest genealogy database in existence is Ancestry.com. Here you may find billions of records from all over the world, including census records, birth, marriage, and death records, military records, immigration records, directories, cemetery records, yearbooks, and more. Although home access normally requires a paid subscription, you may access AncestryLibrary.com for free via Muncie Public Library. While our buildings are closed, you may use it from home by logging into your library account on the Muncie Public Library website. If you're not a member of Muncie Public Library, Ancestry.com also allows you to sign up for a free trial, after which they would charge you at the conclusion of the trial unless you cancel before the trial ends. You may also keep an eye out on their social media for announcements about some databases becoming free to access for a limited time, usually around the holidays and National Heritage Months. I also recommend MyHeritage Library Edition, which is very similar to Ancestry. You may normally access this website at Muncie Public Library for free with or without a library card, but if you do have a library card, you may also access MyHeritage for free at home. The second largest genealogy website next to Ancestry is FamilySearch.org, which is free from anywhere with a free account. As I mentioned early on, it's helpful to check multiple databases if you're having difficulty finding a record. Sometimes there are differences in how a record is scanned or indexed, so it's good to become familiar with several of these websites. Newspapers.com, which is a product of Ancestry, is available at home with a subscription or for free at the Historical Society when they reopen. Like Ancestry, you can also sign up for a free trial. Here you can find articles from newspapers all over the US and in a few other countries. This is an amazing resource for finding obituaries, marriage announcements, graduations, and other milestone events, as well as images. Fold3.com is an ancestry product for military records, available at home with a subscription or for free at the Historical Society when they reopen. Some records are also available for free from anywhere with a free account. These records will be marked free in the site index. Findagrave.com is free from anywhere. No login required. Its content is contributed by volunteers and includes burial information, photos, and sometimes obituaries and links to other family members. This is also a great resource for finding the location of a grave site if you wish to visit a cemetery in person. The last big resource I recommend is cindyslist.com to find all other genealogy websites. Cindy's List is a free collection of genealogy links arranged by topic, which currently includes over 337,000 links and 223 categories. If you are adopted and want to know how to get started researching your genealogy, you may find websites under the adoption category. If you think you have Native American ancestry, you can browse the Native American category and find how-to guides. If you had ancestors who immigrated from Ireland, you can look for links with records from Ireland. If you want to know more about DNA testing for genealogy, you can find information under DNA, genetics, and family health. And if you're looking for pedigree charts or forms, look under charts and forms. Finally, one of the biggest things that people are curious about is the popular trend of DNA testing for genealogy. Genetic genealogy is a whole class in itself. However, I can share that from what I've learned, Ancestry DNA is recommended as the place to start as it has the largest number of people tested by far, meaning that it will have the most data for you to compare to. MyHeritage DNA is a respected competitor, and 23andMe focuses on providing health data. If you've never attended a genetic genealogy workshop and you live in Indiana, I highly recommend finding one offered by the Central Indiana DNA Interest Group. Their classes are listed online and on their Facebook page, and they are always up to date on the latest information about these services and how to use them. They also can help address questions you may have about privacy concerns or how to understand your results once you've received them. I've personally only tried Ancestry DNA so far, and this is the summary of my results, just as an example. And sometimes your percentages can change as they receive more data from other samples. You can see here my 2 ethnicity estimates changed over the past couple years as they received more data to compare to. Once you've received your results, you'll also find others who share close matches to your DNA, and you may be able to contact them to share genealogical information. I've actually been corresponding online through Ancestry with my first cousin twice removed, who came up as a DNA match. She's 90 years old and is the oldest living person in that branch of my family. She has firsthand stories about my grandparents and great-grandparents and other parts of the family that I've never met. So if you're looking for that, it may be worth a try. The best times of year to purchase a DNA testing kit in terms of deals are around the holidays. So think about Christmas, Black Friday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, etc. Congratulations, you made it to the end. So I know we highlighted a lot of information, and you may need to go back and watch more than once, but in summary, get organized and determine your goals. Whether you're just getting started or you're getting back into genealogy, figure out what it is that you really want to accomplish. It may help to make a list to keep you focused. Gather your tools. Create a notebook, print some forms, get ready to document your research. Call up or email your family and friends if you have questions, and write down or record what you find. Begin your research using the resources that we covered, and if you need additional help, call or email a library for guidance. And of course, have fun. Here's our contact information if you have any questions that we can help with. Thank you for joining me, and happy researching!